Rotoscoping is one of the most useful skills that you can learn inside of After Effects. It lets you cut people out of footage, remove backgrounds, separate scenes into layers, and even place text behind someone as they walk past it. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to use the Rotoscope tool so you can do all of these effects in your own videos. So without further ado, let's load up After Effects. So we're inside of After Effects, and this is going to be my first example of how to use the Rotoscope tool. So let's get our footage into the actual sequence itself. So your footage has to be in the timeline at the bottom here. It can't just be sat in your project panel. It needs to be in the timeline to rotoscope. So in this example, I've got a video of myself stood in front of a messy, unorganized backdrop. And this is a prime example of a reason you might want to use rotoscoping, is where you want to cut an object out from the backdrop, but you don't have a perfectly crisp green screen and it will be a bit messy. So rotoscoping is the best way forward to extract an object from a layer and just have it by itself. So with our playhead to the beginning of the timeline and our layer selected, we're going to head up to this icon up here, which is a man with a paintbrush. And it's called the Roto Brush tool. If you can't see it, just hold down on top of the button and you might be looking at the Refine Edge tool. We're going to use that later, but for now, you just want to click on the Roto Brush tool. Now, the Rotoscope tool only works inside of a layer, not on a composition. So currently we can see we are looking at the composition, but we want to double click on the layer, and that will make sure that we are specifically looking at the layer that we want to edit. So if it's not coming up with this green circle tool, chances are you're still looking at the composition. Make sure you're viewing the layer specifically by double clicking on that layer. So with your mouse in the preview window, you will see a green circle. And now this is going to be your brush tool. The areas that we brush are going to be the parts that we want to keep. So I want to keep myself here. So I'm going to just start painting in the area that I want. And if I let go, we will see a thin pink line appear. Now this pink line is the outer boundary of the area we've selected. So right now we can see, if I zoom in a bit, we've selected most of my jacket, but my head isn't selected. So I can just go ahead and start brushing in my head area. And it will kind of automatically detect, especially if there's a contrasting color between the subject and the background, it will do a pretty good job of just guessing what you're trying to outline. Now we can change the size of the brush head by holding on a Mac. We can hold Command and you can scroll up or down. I'm on a trackpad, so I'm just pushing the trackpad up and down, and we can see that's going to change the size of the circle. And then when I let go, my brush size is now bigger. This just helps if you are selecting large areas or super small intricate areas. So if I wanted to work on an area in detail, this brush size is too big. So I can just hold Command and then I can just shrink it down but with the mouse, and then I can select the area. Now, if we select too much and we want to remove an area we've selected, all we have to do is hold Option on a Mac, and I'll put the Windows version on screen, and that will change our playhead to red. And that will allow us to deselect areas. So now I can scrub over the area that I accidentally included, and we can see here that it's getting rid of it. So all the time you're holding Option, it will invert the selection and it will delete the area. So at this point, you want to make sure that we have this pink line going entirely around the object that you want to keep. If you want to zoom into specific parts, just using the hand tool here, or H on the keyboard, is super useful. You can move around, and then as you zoom in, it will zoom in where the hand is. So you can check that all looks super crisp. There's a few parts we've missed here, but it will be super fiddly to do these sorts of areas. That is where they have the special tool called the Refine Edge tool. And we can access that by hovering the mouse over the Roto Brush tool, clicking and holding, and it will reveal the other option. So now I can let go, and we're going to swap to the Refine Edge tool. And this is specifically used for really detailed stuff like hair, which is always really difficult to separate from the backgrounds. This tool we're going to use to paint around the hair, and that will select the hair with extra detail. So once again, I'm just going to increase the brush size just by clicking and dragging. And I'm going to paint around the hair area a little bit all over the place, but we can see here it's going to appear with this kind of alpha mask, I think it's called. And essentially the white is what it's going to keep. The black is what it's not going to keep, which is way more accurate than me just going around with the pink line. You don't need to do the whole object with this, but this just works extra well for areas with fine detail, with hair, etc., etc. Go back to viewing that full screen. So with our playhead at the beginning of the video, so just by hitting spacebar, it's going to automatically try and track this mask onto every frame throughout the video. So I'll hit spacebar, and depending on how good your computer is, this might do it super easily, it might struggle a little bit, but we can see it's just going to scrub through every single frame, and it's going to try and hold the mask onto the object. This will work super easily if there's not a lot of motion and there's a lot of contrast between your subject and the background. But if you have a crazy scene and it's really complicated, there's a good chance that the pink line will suddenly glitch or it will miss a spot. And that's not a problem, because all you have to do is press spacebar on the keyboard. You can scrub back to the part where it has maybe cut off your arm, and you can just go with the brush and you can just paint it back in, or you can just delete it if it's added an extra part of the background. So it's completely changeable. And then when you're happy with it again, we can just press spacebar and it will continue to scan through the video clip until the entire 10-second clip, for example, is done. So we can see here, it's just analyzing it. So it's now rendered through the entire clip and it has completed the mask. If we are happy with how the mask has been created and the pink line hasn't gone AWOL, then we can just press this button here that says freeze. Sometimes this button is hidden depending on your preview window size. So it could super easily be lost just in the distance. Bit of a design flaw, but if you can't see the freeze button, just make sure your preview window is big enough. And then what this will do is this is going to essentially export and save this mask. So now it's actually going to cut out all the frames individually, and anything outside of that pink mask it is going to delete. So it's finished the rotoscoping, but we're still now looking at, the same video. That is because we are still on the layer and we need to go back to the composition. So if we come back and click on composition here, we can see that it is now completed the rotoscoping. We have our new layer, which is a completely transparent background. And now this is where the fun begins, because with this tool, you are able to select individual elements of a layer or a scene or anything you could dream of, and we can split it into different elements and allow you to insert graphics, text, other video effects in between the layers to create new effects. Let me just explain what's possible. So right now we've removed the background, which therefore means that if we have a new background, we can put that underneath this layer in the timeline, and we can see as it has transparency around the edge, we've now completely changed the scene. So you can cut someone out, you can green screen them, you can put them wherever you want. Okay, so we can see here, this is a prime example of we've managed to cut someone out and it has perfectly cut around them. And then you could replace the background, you could replace the scene, you could change anything you possibly want. These are fully separate layers and we can move me around accordingly. And the possibilities with this are absolutely endless. Now, before I dive into some other cool ideas of what you can do with rotoscoping, there are extra settings and adjustments you can make to get the best out of your rotoscope layer. So with the layer selected, you will see the Roto Brush and Refine Edge effect here. Now, this is the effect that we've got on the video. Sometimes, depending on the quality of your video or the contrast between the color of the object and the background, it might do a great job on the border of the person, it might not. But with these settings here, it will allow you to really take it to the next level of professionalism. And I think a lot of people don't even bother playing around with these settings, and it can really make a big difference. So the feather option here, this is basically going to soften up the edge of your rotoscoping. It'll blend it and make it not so much of a harsh cut. So right now 5 is pretty much nothing. If I just click and drag on the number to the left, it will reduce it, and we can see here how much of a harsh how much of a harsh edge that has without any feathering. And if you can see, we crank the number up, and as it goes higher and higher, it will smoothen out the edge, which looks good, but there will be a point where it starts to not look so good. There's definitely a sweet spot. So I think 40 is incredibly high, maybe sit around the 10, but everything is specific to what video you're doing. So feathering, that's really good. Now, shifting edge as well. This basically allows you to move that pink line after we've done the rotoscoping to either capture more of the original background or less of the original background. So if I just hide the background layer, we can see what it's doing. So if I shift the edge and make that number bigger, it's actually gonna enlarge the area that it's cutting out, and therefore we can see the original background, which we probably don't want. What you probably will want to use this for is actually shifting the edge maybe around -5. And that's going to make sure that if some of the background was accidentally picked up in the rotoscoping, it's going to just blend that off and cut that off a little bit and just make it look super seamless. So if you ever want to change anything at all about your rotoscope, we can just go back onto the layer and then we can just uncheck the box that says freeze and it'll unfreeze it. And then we can go back through and make any adjustments we want possible. So cutting someone out and putting them on a background, that's a great example, but what else can we do with this tool? Well, I'm sure you've seen a million times before where someone puts text behind themselves in a video. Now, this is done with rotoscoping, but it's done with an extra layer involved. So let me show you my example. So we've got here a clip of myself just waving at the camera and then walking off. Classic vlog style sort of camera setup. So we're going to use the rotoscope tool to duplicate myself in the scene and then add text in between the background and myself. So step one is we have the layer selected and then we're going to duplicate the layer. So on a MacBook, that is Command D. Now with the top layer selected, we need to double click on it to enter the layer itself. Because right now we're still selected on the composition. We double click, now we are in the layer because we can see we've got the layer selected here. Repeat the exact process we did earlier. So we can just select myself, it's gonna pick me up. I don't need to show you this all again because you guys know this by now, if you were paying attention. And then we can just click freeze straight away and we can watch it do its thing. 3, 2, 1. And now if we just go back to the composition and come out that layer. Now right now it doesn't look like it's done anything, but that's because the rotoscope layer is perfectly in line with the background layer. So we can see here, if I just click and drag, then now actually we have 2 layers. So we have the original background layer with the person, and then we have a new layer, which is just the object in the foreground, i.e. me in this scenario. So now we're gonna use the text tool. I'm gonna click up here. We're gonna click on the frame here, and we're gonna say vlog number 97. Now, usually I just use my plugin called Quick Draw. Didn't want to confuse you at the beginning of the video, and I wanted you to have a very similar looking setup to me, but usually have my plugin Quick Draw sat nicely in the top right hand corner, which just has some super useful buttons. If you are an After Effects user, you might find this handy. So we've got a button here. It'll center align the anchor point and the object to the frame, perfectly like that. There we go. And we could even go and add a bit of a drop shadow just to make this look nice. Very Casey Neistat, should we say. And now the magic comes from taking it from the top layer. We're going to bring it down and sandwich it in between the rotoscope layer and the background. So just watch this magic. Ready? There we go. So we have the background layer, we have the text that we've added, and then we have ourselves or the object in the foreground. So we can see here just a great example of what is possible with the layers. Now, this is obviously a super basic example, but hopefully that kind of just gets the cogs turning in your brain of, hang on a minute, I don't have to work with a 2D layer anymore. You could have a flat image, you can select certain objects, bring them out from the background as long as you copy them and keep the background layer there. And then you can insert loads of different things into different segments of the video. So this final use for rotoscoping is one that I don't think I've really seen many people ever use before, but it's a really cool way of creating a high production video with a low production camera. And that is, we're going to fake a shallow depth of field effect. So just like we did before, I've got here just a Netflix style talking head clip, and we can see here that it looks nice and cinematic, but everything in the background is pretty much in focus as well as myself. So to create a bit of depth, I'm going to duplicate the layer. So we have a background layer, and then we can create a new rotoscope for myself. If I double click, make sure we're in the layer, you know the drill. I hope you know the drill by now, otherwise you haven't been paying attention. So we've got it selected, zoom in, use. So there's a good example of how the book is a really close color to my skin, hence it's struggling to differentiate the two. And same up with there as well. Swap to the refine edge tool, make it bigger, select the hair, crazy hairdo, and then let's hit freeze. And then if we give it a minute, so we go back to the composition, like we know before, everything looks the same, but we've actually got myself in the chair as a new layer. So if we select the lower layer, and now we can add a Gaussian blur effect to it. I would strongly recommend, if you don't have it installed, install FX Console. It's a free plugin. It just allows you to search for effects instantly. So if we add in Gaussian blur to the lower layer, and we crank this up, it should blur that background just enough that it can give the illusion of having a bit more of a shallow depth of field camera. So not going crazy, because it will start to look less realistic. And we can see here, I haven't perfectly picked up the corner of the face, so we can go back and change that. But all in all, just as a really subtle effect that we can add to a video just to give it a bit more professionalism, a bit more pizzazz. So that is 3 super useful examples of rotoscoping. It is a fantastic tool. When you master it, you realize that things don't have to be 2D anymore. You can really play around with as many layers as you want, really bring some scenes to life and add some cool effects. That is all from me today. Now, if you are an After Effects editor, then I strongly recommend you check out my plugin Quick Draw. I built this plugin initially for myself because I just wished there was a panel that had all these super useful buttons on there. So instead of just wishing, I just went out and made it myself. So it is available in the link in the description if you want to check it out. It's got some super useful buttons, especially when it comes to keyframing, zooms, all that sort of stuff. Will save you a solid probably 45 minutes every day of faffing around if you love working inside of After Effects. So yeah, that is all from me. Thank you so much for watching the video. Hopefully you learned something. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.